Hi, everyone. Welcome to the session of the special debate on the topic of minority victims of crimes get more emphasis, focus than non-minority victims. So basically, the context about this topic is that we had a discussion in the last weekend, the last weekly debate on Saturday that we had about there was a lot of discussions about how there is a double standard about like religion when it comes to crimes committed on things like that. And the topic for last debate was discrimination is subjective. So this was like sort of like a tertiary focus on that debate. And the debate kind of like got really hot because of this whole concept of like um, a different emphasis on the nature of the crimes depending on who was the perpetrator and who was the victim. And that was the reason why we set up this call about this topic of like minority victims getting certain different emphasis. Let's say it's just to put it broadly. Now, what do I mean by this? Like, what does it mean to say that like crimes get a different nature of narrative depending on who the victim is? Um, there are actually many phenomenon in this regard. One of the examples that I can give is that whenever there is a crime committed where the victim is of a minority religion, like let's say they're a Muslim or a Christian, or maybe like Dalits or something like that. It's some kind of like a marginalized section. When I say minority, it's basically a marginalized section. The narrative is like very different compared to when there's a victim of a crime who's, let's say, Hindu by nature. The emphasis shifts because the moment the victim of a crime is a minority or a marginalized identity, right? The narrative focuses on the religious angle, or the emphasis is laid out on the religious angle, and there is a certain focus on like a religiously motivated crime or something like that. So this is the thing. And again, when a crime is committed against like the majority, let's say like a normal Hindu man or something like that, the emphasis suddenly becomes about the nuances of the crime, or like maybe they start talking about the details of the crime in a different way. They don't focus so much on the nature of the crime or the nature of the victim and the religious angle and motivations and things like that. But at the same time, right, there are certain other instances where, for example, if the perpetrator of the crime is a minority, instead of being the victim, if the perpetrator is the person who is of a minority or a marginalized identity, then they start suppressing the the identity of the minority group, right? Because there is a certain sentiment that when a person who's committing the crime is of a minority religion, and you start emphasizing that angle, there is a certain sentiment that it can further accelerate the process of like tensions around that religious angle, right? And if you guys notice, like, no, this is not a phenomenon that is like isolated to India as a country. This thing happens in the US as well. There is a very, like, well documented phenomenon about how people report crimes that are committed by blacks versus committed crimes committed by whites. There is a racial angle to that in the US. So in the US, what happens is that whenever there's a crime committed by a white person, they don't even they just like say that it's a white male that committed the crime, and then if it's a black person, they just like don't disclose the identity, because like there is this perception, similar perception to what's happening here. In here, it's a religious dimension, and over there, it's like a racial dimension. But basically, the essence of it is that we have a certain bias in the way we talk about crimes, especially in the media, and the way it's talked about elsewhere as well. Whenever there is even on social media, it's not just the mainstream media. I'm talking about social media as well. Whenever there's a crime committed by a minority person, somehow the identity is concealed, or you just have to like figure it out through the name or something. But the moment there is a crime committed against a Muslim person or something like that, suddenly the emphasis is on the fact that a Muslim man gets lynched or something like that. So they focus on this, and there are many like tertiary phenomenon associated with this. One of it being that there are reports raised by the U.S. like, US does a lot of these religious freedom reporting and freedom of speech reporting kind of a thing. And in there, like, this actually has a implication there, because the moment you start seeing these reports about like how minority religions are being oppressed, right? Like if a report reads, instead of a man being mugged or a man being murdered on the street or something like that, if it says that a Muslim man got lynched or Muslim man got robbed or something like that, then it completely changes the narrative over there. So owing to all of this is a really important topic for us to discuss. So I hope I've given the proper context around like why this is an important topic to discuss, and I hope it's clear for you guys as to what I'm exactly saying. So if somebody has a confusion regarding what I've just laid out, maybe you guys can raise the question. But otherwise, if not, then you can just raise your hand, and then we can have a discussion around this. Yeah, Samat, go ahead.
Yeah, Raghav, I think you did like a fantastic job of laying out the groundwork for the debate to be had. One of the points that I really agree with is that how you said that this phenomenon is not limited to India at all. You can observe in these kinds of phenomena in US and Western Europe, for sure.
Exactly,
And especially the example that you gave of in the US, how when the crimes are committed, let's say by a black person versus if they're committed by a white person, how the media goes to, the difference in the media coverage. Yeah, we have been observing it in at least in the past few years. I think many people would be aware that these kind of mass shootings, I mean, the shootings involving several casualties, uh, that is a relatively like common phenomenon in US because of the existence of the widespread existence of guns, especially like assault rifles and that sort of guns. In fact, I think there are more. There's statistic that says that there are more guns in the US than there are people. So we have like 30 crore people in the US approximately, but the number of guns, it is like way more than that, it seems. So given that, no, like we see that these kinds of shootings which involves mass casualties, it is a very regular occurrence. And one of the things that we observed in the recent past is when such a mass shooting is created by uh, a white man, uh, we can, immediately get to know that in the headlines that the suspect, he will be identified as such, as a white male in his like a youth
even
or
as a
middle
white
aged. Yeah, it will be described
supremacist.
like that.
I mean, they even label them
Yeah,
as a white
yes.
supremacist.
Sure. So, many of the shootings, they were done with the committed by the white males. They were done with the ideology of white supremacy, and they will be labeled as such, by the media. But if the marshalling is committed by a black person, no, it will be just be identified as it is committed by a male in the given age group and with this name. And that is how we figure out that is in fact committed by a minority, racial minority over there. That in fact his race is not identified, right? So that is how we figure out that is actually a minority. So it has become, a comical sort of way. But it would be comical if it is not such so sad and brutal. Uh, so that's one thing, like how the media outlets, they are identifying the criminals by their ethnic background. Uh, and then, like as you said, many of these mass shootings, they are in fact motivated by a racial prejudice. So white supremacist ideology, when that is done with the intention of white supremacist ideology, uh, the media like readily identifies it and then goes on to, you know, thrash not only that ideology, but, you know, like what they think is, they bash like the white people wholesale, in fact, or like at least the right wing or the conservative white people, they bash them wholesale. Like the whoever the Trump supporters are there, they're saying that the media will say that Trump supporters are in fact, you know, they are not much removed from these sort of crimes. So they are ready to paint with such a broad brush, you know, like
Yeah.
so, so that is there. But when the such a crimes is committed by people who are motivated by, you know, different kinds of ideologies, let's say black supremacy, or
I mean, I'll give you an example.
or in
Actually,
the recent case,
there's even trans people. Like, you know, there's a specific case. I think it was in
yeah,
Tennessee or something. There was a specific case there where there was a trans mass shooter, and they
yeah,
refused to like follow the protocol. Usually, the protocol is that the manifesto of the mass shooter. Like, if there's a mass shooter with a certain manifesto, because like, they usually have this manifesto. There's a reason why they are going and doing this. And if it's a white supremacist, then they expose the manifesto to sort of like, you know, like sort of like expose the derangement that led to this mass
mm,
event, right? But then there was this trans shooting event that happened, and they refused to like expose the manifesto. They still actually not exposed, and there was like a radical shift in the protocol of like how they handled that crime. Now, I mean, obviously there are some motivations as to like, you know, you can argue about the motivation because there is no publicly stated motivation as to why this is the case, why there is a bias in the reporting based on the minority status of the perpetrator or the victim. And but I want to like, you know, bring the discussion back to India, because we're talking about in the context of India as a country. And you can see that this phenomenon, even though it's like prevalent, it's been observed for a long time, it's very well documented in the US. I see there is a substantial trend that is happening similar to that in India, because like I think for some reason I just think that Indian mainstream media is very well oiled to emulate the Western trends. They sort of like imported all of these practices wholesale without discriminating what is a good thing to import and what is bad thing to import. They basically imported everything. Everything that they do in the US, they've kind of like brought it over here. And I think that is also like affecting the way we handle things over here in terms of like how we report news and everything. Samarth, I'm not sure if you are done with the thing, but I just wanted to like bring the discussion back to an Indian focus, so that like we can talk about the minorities in India, and like, you know, like how things happen here. Samarth, do you want to continue, or uh, yeah?
you know, I'll just add that as you said, like we are importing these kinds of ideologies from the US, or the, you know, or how the media works. And yeah, so that is why, you know, like understanding how all of this works in the US and Western Europe, it becomes important to understand even the Indian context, because you, as you said, you can definitely see that like some culture, you know, any kind of practice that becomes like in vogue in the US, it is
Mhm.
like followed in
Yep.
India too, and that becomes mainstream in India too within the span of, let's say, a couple of years.
Right.
So even understanding how these things operate in the Western world, no, it gives us like more insight into why these things are happening in India even.
Yeah. And actually, I wanna add to another example of this happening, like the Western Europe example, like Germany and UK. There is a huge focus around immigration as such. You know, there's a lot of people really like, you know, they're really enraged by the fact that there is uncontrolled immigration into UK and Germany and places like these. And what is happening is that there is a very differential treatment towards perpetrators of crime who are of a minority status versus the perpetrators of crime who are of the majority status, right? And for example, if you see, like, you know, Islamic fundamentalists, they're taking over the streets of UK, like London, and they do all kinds of things that are sort of like just tolerated by the law enforcement and things like that. But the same things, if somebody else is committing against a minority group, it is like taken down swiftly, because like they don't want to encourage any kind of like racial prejudice. I mean, this is a speculation on my part. I'm not really sure if there's a consensus on like why this is the case, but this is an observed phenomenon, and I want to I want us to have a discussion about this in the Indian context. So Samantha, you raised your hand for a while. Please go ahead.
Yes, Raghav, it's a very fantastic topic. I go with the topic saying that yes, the minority victims always get accentuated more than the majority victims. If I limit myself to India, I can say that uh, yes, uh, we do normally see and read in the newspaper that if something has happened to a person coming from SC background or ST background, then that gets more highlighted than a person coming from any other background other than the marginalized or deprived classes or classes getting more noticed. So I believe that one thing that majority always have a voice and minority do have a voice, but the voice is relatively lower than the majority. So that would be a reason why the minorities victims gets more highlighted in the news channel or anywhere in the news or anywhere in the newspaper. So that is one argument that I would like to present before you all. And second thing is that as India is a very constitutional democracy, and we are moving towards the society which is we are moving towards making a society that is inclusive and uh, inclusive, plural, and equal society and egalitarian society. So when there is something which is happening uh, to the minorities as such, it may be a religious minorities, it may be an ethnic minorities, or it may be an linguistic minorities as such. It gets more highlighted because thinking that they may get suppressed in the hands of majorities. So the voice, again, I say that yes, voice is lower, so therefore it gets more highlighted in the news channel or anywhere in the news is what I believe.
Okay, that's a good point, but and if you look at the fundamental mechanics of like how these institutions operate, right? I mean, if you look at the mainstream media as an institution, these are predominantly their focus. These are like for-profit institutions that have a certain infrastructure that is like geared towards maximizing their profit, right? And you have to understand that they, more than being like pillars of journalism, a lot of them are like geared towards like entertainment value, similar to like how big tech, like for example Instagram and Twitter, they have actually have algorithms and teams that are optimizing for user engagement. So how do you increase user engagement? You have to make sure that people spend more time on the platform, and it is a very well observed phenomenon that people who are enraged and indignant will spend more time to like argue with the other side, or like will for example, I'm talking about the context of social media. Like for example, if you see a tweet that is really like makes your blood boil because like it's so makes you feel so indignant, then people are going to be spending more time on the platform tweeting against that or something like that. This is a observed phenomenon. There's been like a lot of research articles about this as well, where like they say that that if you want people to spend more time on your platform, present information that is controversial, present information that is going to like divide the audience, like basically polarize the audience. And it's similar to like it's a similar dynamic in the mainstream media space. Like for example, if you turn on your news channel and then you see that there is something that is like really makes your blood boil, then obviously the people are going to watch that. They want to know what is happening. And a lot of the measurement of the success of these institutions, the TV channels, they're measured in terms of how many people are watching, how many people are receiving the broadcast that they're sending out. So in a way, you may think that they are doing it for the sake of like enhancing the voice of the minority, but if you look at the mechanics of it, there is a very likely explanation that these people are doing it purely for the enragement factor, purely to increase the indignation of the viewers, and to sort of bring a special emphasis onto the whole situation. Because if you look at like for example, there was a case about like the Rohit Vemula, right? He committed suicide, and there was such a huge noise about it. And I mean, we can discuss the specifics of that case, but if you think about the instance of like student suicides, right? There are so many people who so many students unfortunately commit suicide in our country. And the reason why that specific case was like emphasized was that there was a certain angle to it. There was a certain discrimination on the basis of caste, which led to that event. And that is why people really wanted to raise that voice against this. And I mean, the reason why it was discussed so much was that there was a certain angle to the discussion of that topic. And I want us all to like, look at that as a thing. How does this affect the way we handle these crimes? Because like obviously, if a person belonging to a majority caste or like a non-minority demographic is being harassed, does it not warrant a similar justice, or is it only reserved for people of the minority badge, right? So Karthik, I see that you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Raghav. Hi, everyone. So rightly said, Raghav, that majorly these Indian media houses or the global media houses, they care for the TRP. Also, I would like to highlight the point that apart from the TRP, this is a very big game. So it is actually a formula to spread the Hindu-Muslim conflicts, India-Pakistan conflict. And it is, if you talk about India, our geography, there are Hindus, plus if you talk about minorities, there is not only Muslim and Christians, there are Jains, there are Parsis, there are Sikhs. So there are no conflicts among Hindu and these other communities, and only between Hindu and Muslims it is being created. And it is as I said, it is a formula of creating a widespread conflict between Hindu and Muslims. And there is no actually central agenda, to foment violence or riots, civil wars among in the countries like India, or if we talk about the British, the European countries now, what they are actually doing. They have actually realized that what has been happening in their countries right now. And these media houses, they know that Hindus cannot be incited easily into doing violence or terror attacks, so they never say anything favoring Hindus. Writing in favor of Hindus is like completely useless for their agenda, and that's why they highlight these minority crimes. And I would not like to limit or just keep under the umbrella of minority, because we have a large number of other minorities as well. This is actually a big political game.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Samantha, go ahead.
Raghav, yes, I go with your argument saying that yes, it is because the media people are there and they are intended to create some rift between the communities and to encourage and get attention out of the community and do something. Just I want to bring my own experience here. Last year we were doing one project in Mysore and we were assessing uh, the schemes or the programs or the welfare schemes that are given by Mysore City Corporation to the people with disability. But when we were interacting with the people with disability there was no forum at all for them to raise their voice. And so there were many discrepancies in the system and the people did not get these things, and those people were unable to come together and raise their voice. But the same thing, if we see the same thing when the farmers or when farmers do not get any benefit from the government, they all unite together, and the same thing goes saying that they go together saying that you are not doing something. But yes, it is getting accepted and it is getting noticed in the society. Yes, they are able to unite. But the same thing is not happening for these people who are the marginal people in the society, and those kind of things are not getting highlighted. So what I say is that these pertinent issues are not being telecasted or highlighted by the media, but these kind of things are highlighted saying that to encourage the people or to bring some conflict between the people or the community as such. And they also say that yes, we are just protecting the minority rights. So I guess yes, I accept that it is something.
I think that's a great point. That's a great point, because like if you look at the disability population, right, they are not a significant minority. They are a minority, but they're not a significant minority. I mean, what is the meaning of a significant and an insignificant minority, right? A significant minority is that, like, if you take the Muslim population, they're like, I think like 14% or something, right? I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are a certain portion of minority who have certain voting, they have like ability to, you know, influence a political game and everything. So including them into the picture actually, like, you know, serves a certain agenda, either political or financial or whatever. But like, you know, talking in favor of disability people, I mean, I haven't seen anything like that happening on a large scale where people are fighting for the rights of the disabled or something like that. And yeah, because like they're just not a united force. They don't have a representation. They don't really count so much. They don't really count as a demographic identity, right? Then there's nobody, like, you know, fighting in a political voice for the rights of disabled or something like that. So I think it kind of like substantiates this speculation or the theory that the media highlights a minority only when there is a certain political or at least significant engagement outcome for them. So yeah, that's a good point. Prasanth, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Raghav. So, when I got this topic, I thought like minority, I related the minority with the religion and caste, and then the previous speaker talked about the disability thing. So something new I discovered today about minority, and that's the best thing about having a debate. And talking about the minorities issues, definitely they get highlighted more because like there are certain parties they want to show them the minority that I'm kind of taking your side and I'm taking your issues. And because of that, whenever something happen, that issue get highlighted, and that is the right thing. Like being a minority and being the representative of the minority is a good thing because that shows like how well the country is doing. But at the same time, we do have a lot of cases where the minorities are the kind of the one who is exploiting the others, and in that case, the same political parties don't raise the voice. They because of the vote bank politics. So I think what we need to do is like we need to also highlight the majorities issues. We just kind of assume that like since they are in majority, nothing wrong is happening, and if something wrong happen, they will take up their issue on their own. But that doesn't happen. If you go by region, you'll find somewhere the minorities are in the majority, and there something wrong
Yeah.
happen, and that issue don't get highlighted. So we also should look into the cases where the majority is being exploited.
No, yeah, that is definitely the case. Yeah, Karthik, go ahead.
Yeah, so Raghav, not only, I just want to say that few things are also hidden for the minorities, the benefits which are being given to the minorities or to the Muslims per se, I can say, or Christians. So they are being hidden by the Indian media or by the politicians. So just for an example, like it is a 4 days back news. So do we all know that West Bengal's CM has allocated 5.5 thousand crores to madrasas? Can you just imagine, instead of the media house does not highlight these kind of issues. That's where it is very disheartening to know that what is going on in our country. Just to madrasas, if it is they are allocating 5.5 thousand of crores of funds of the state funds, instead of funding them, they could have funded the other things. The CM would have allocated the funds to develop the IT sector in the state, but it is not being done and it is not being highlighted. So it is not only the media house which is responsible. I think media houses are also being funded by the political parties, where they only want to highlight few things and do not want to highlight the other things.
Absolutely, yeah. They absolutely have that power to, we often think that media can corrupt the news or the narrative of the public by presenting fake news or false news. They don't have to. They could be saying everything that they say on the news could be true, but simply by exercising the right to choose what to show and what not to show, they can create significant rift or corruption in the narrative. So yeah, that's a very, very fair point that when things happen to the majority, things are kind of like suppressed, and when things happen to the minority, it's kind of like amplified to a certain point. And like I initially I told you that there is a certain significant outcome for all of these things. For example, when the US creates kind of a report on the religious freedom of expression in India, there is they look at the number of instances in the media when these things were happening, right? And when the media is not reporting these incidents, that does not count into that report. So it just looks like the whole country is only targeting the minorities and things like that. And I will give you another example, like of something similar to what Karthik was talking about. I don't know if how many people know this, but like a few years ago, DMK came into power in Tamil Nadu, and since they came into power, they've like demolished like 2,000 temples. Okay, like over 2,000 temples. Like they've on the basis that these were temples that did not have the proper documentation and things like. Nobody knows about this because nothing was done to cover this news. And you can it's not like only that Hindu temples are the ones without any documentation. These are like some of these temples are actually hundreds of years old, and nothing was done to stop them. There were people didn't even know it enough to go and protest these things. And also there is a certain political affiliations of these media houses that they will only they will kind of work in alignment with the political parties to have the focus on or off or something depending on what is the political outcome for that coverage. So these are all things that affect the the nature of the outcome depending on who the victim is, who the perpetrators are. So it's a huge game. I think it's a really important topic as well. But I also want to explore where there is contention around this topic, because like one of the reasons why we chose this as a topic was to see if there is a disagreement, because I think everybody here, from what you guys have said, like we all agree that there's it is not a minority versus the majority. It's more of like how the people in power play the dynamics around for their own personal benefit. But I do want to see if somebody disagrees with what's being discussed here. Yes, Samat, you want to go ahead? Yeah.
One thing that I want to highlight is if any political party, if it wants to get an electoral majority, what it can do is, one good strategy is just combine all of these minorities, the minorities that exist along various dimensions, and then they will have a electoral majority. So for India, it might be you can highlight, you can if you're a political party, you can favor religious minorities over religious majorities, and then you can favor women over men, and then favor SC/STs over the let's say the privileged caste, and then you can build a coalition of all of these minorities, and then finally you won't be left with a minority but actually a majority.
Yeah.
So that strategy, well, we can see it in India or in US. In the US, it is the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Here it is I think it's BJP versus India Alliance. Well, I won't say these political alliances are exclusively built around that coalition, because you have this cross voting also. Many of the SC/ST people, they vote for BJP, and high caste people voting for India Alliance. So it's the things that I'm saying. It's not like a very neat fit, but you do tend to see this happening, and the kind of news that media publishes, it was previously said it will be based on the TRP ratings and what gets the most sensationalized kind of news. So that is one thing. And also, you recently brought up how these media houses, they are themselves political, and they're gonna like amplify some voices and suppress other voices. So we have this media houses being motivated by like let's say not just one motivation, but like a dual sort of motivation. Well, they got to sensationalize the news, but then they've also got to push a certain ideological agenda that they have, and they've got to like balance these both. You know, yeah. So these are the points that I want to make.
Right. Yeah, Karthik, go ahead.
Extremely great point, Samarth. And I just want to, make another point here. That if you have said right that there should be an electoral this thing that women should be treated over men or something like that. So again, there will be a disparity till we get one particular law in our country. Suppose for an example, I want to say, if you want to make, suppose let's take an example of a property dispute between, brother and a sister. So our Indian law will first check whether that particular family belongs to Hindus or Muslims or Christians, and according to that, then they will do the particular judgment. So if unfortunately if the girl belongs to a Muslim family, then the rights will go to the brother, because our Indian judicial system, for Muslims, they have a particularly different law. So to bring that electoral bond of something sort of like that, we should have one particular law. And in the last one of the debates, I have talked about it. Uniform civil code. I have talked about it, where the topic was Hindutva. Raghav would remember.
Yeah, Hindutva and
Hindutva
secularism.
is compatible with secularism or not.
Yeah.
So until we get that one particular law for everyone, it is actually is kind of very impossible or very hard to get into these electoral bonds. That's actually an extremely great point what you have said, but these are the difficulties we could be facing.
Right. I think it sounds almost like if people were to listen to what we are saying here, it almost sounds like the majority are the ones who are being discriminated or targeted in a certain way. But obviously, that's also not wholly true, because like there are very very much the instances where minorities are targeted in an unfair way. These things happen. I guess the consensus, I would say, what seems fair is that these things happen regardless. There are small scale communal violences and communal things happening across the country and at all times. It's just that when the emphasis is biased, it sort of looks like there's a actual targeted rift between the larger group identities. So yeah, Samarth, go ahead.
One thing I earlier pointed out, and I want to just repeat again, is like any given person, he cannot be like purely put into this minority or the majority box. He might be like a majority in some dimensions and minority in others. So even if you take that a Hindu man, in India, he might be considered as a majority, right? But then if he's like actually a Hindu Brahmin man, he's actually a minority, because all of the other castes, they kind of outnumber him.
Right.
So that is a point, it's not actually disadvantageous if they pursue the minority vote, because they can pursue a minority vote along one dimension, and then they can, a given political party, they can pursue minority votes along different dimensions. They can attract, let's say, religious minorities, and then let's say the economically disadvantaged classes, and then women voters. And given all of this, they can actually build a coalition that achieves the electoral majority.
That's actually a really good point, man. I just maybe think about something. which is that instead of minority and majority, these are the things that are typically associated with disadvantaged versus advantaged, like a privileged, disadvantaged versus privileged, right? We make this assumption that the minority is the one that is disadvantaged and the majority are the privileged, but it's not always the case. The other example that somebody else pointed out was that the Brahmins are like the minority, but they're considered to be the privileged, right? And then the majority, the Dalits and all these people, they are considered to be the disadvantaged, but by numbers they could be the larger number, right? And similar things, like for example, there's also like a role reversal that happens when you have this kind of a bias that happens. A notable example, like this is more documented in the US than here, because like here we don't have these kind of intellectual debates where we talk about the larger patterns of things. But if you look at the US media, there's a lot of intellectual discourse surrounding these kinds of biases. So over there, if you look at it, there's a lot of intellectual discourse surrounding how it's actually a disadvantage to be a white male, because there is so much bias against white men that now it's like if you get stuck in a crime, it's almost like it's now your disadvantage because of your identity, because the people like automatically perceive that you're a privileged group, like you belong to a privileged group, therefore you do not deserve our sympathy, even if the nature of the crime was like proportional against a male white victim versus a like a female black victim or something like that. So it's a really funny thing, because like the perceived bias against like who's advantaged and who's privileged and who's disadvantaged can have like reverse the outcomes in terms of like the actual uh, the way in which we perceive those crimes. Yeah, Prasang, go ahead.
So I was saying like we are assuming that like the majority voice is not being heard, but at the same time we are not saying that the crime against minority doesn't happen. It does happen, but it gives the media space. That's what we are saying. But when a Muslim person in UP went inside a Hindu home and kills the children, that issue never comes in the media. You might have not hearing this, but if you reverse the religion, then that would have been the highlight of all the medias.
Yeah.
But because the victims were Hindu, nobody took care of them, and it was like totally a silent issue. So we are just saying that like the media should also give the more space to the majority also.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we've been discussing so far. So HP, you've been pretty quiet. Like, you wanna share some of your thoughts?
Just if somebody else wants to talk in middle, I'll just take 5 more minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, please. But yeah, I think I'm not really. I think we are at a kind of an agreement. I think everybody here kind of agrees about like what's going on. And so whenever this kind of thing happens, right, I usually like to focus on like, okay, fine, we're all on the same side now. What do we do about it, right? And I mean, I'm also thinking about it from the perspective of like, how do we solve this kind of reporting bias? Does it require like kind of like government regulation? I personally think that is a really terrible idea, but because like anytime that government interferes in the way that media operates and things like this, it's again, it's like it's advertised as a tyrannical government that hinders press freedom and things like that. But how else can you actually fix this kind of a biased reporting? Do we need to have like certain media ethics enforcement where like media is forced to adopt a certain standard when discussing topics, when influencing the public perception? Yeah, so I'm not really sure like how we even deal with this, like, or who should be the authority that should take up the ownership of like ensuring that there is like ethical behavior from the large scale media. Because I think we all sort of agree that this whole issue of like how we discuss about these things is primarily influenced by the bias in media, right? The players in the media space. So it's a hard problem to solve in that sense. But I want to hear, like, if you guys have any ideas about, like, what can we do about this?
I think people have to be conscious enough to distinguish these two things, or what is right and what is wrong.
No, that is definitely should be the case. Obviously, like, you cannot, like, like, show everyone everything at the same time. But then the thing is that people do not have a space to go and have a cohesive conversation about this. There's a huge thing in the media regarding, I don't know if you guys know about this echo chamber effect, where people gather towards spaces where they are agreed to, rather than places where they are disagreed with. And this is a personal interest of mine to, like, focus on this particular problem, because that is one of the main reasons why I created the debate club. Because, like, we need to engage people of varying perspectives, so that, like, we can all, like, normalize our perspectives and, like, educate each other. Because, like, when people come in with various perspectives, and they're not fighting to, like, convert the other person into your side, usually what happens is, if it is conducted with a certain level of maturity, there is a certain normalization that happens, and everybody walks away being more educated. And I think that, for what you are saying, that people have to assume the responsibility of how they ascertain these things. It is not always possible, because, like, first of all, different people consume different news, because they are tuned into the channel that they all agree with. So it kind of, like, amplifies their bias. Whatever bias they have, they're getting amplified. I mean, there's clear ideological affinities that media houses have, right? They have a certain, like, for example, if somebody has watches, like, for example, Republic World or something, they tend to be people who with a certain political ideology. They're not usually not the other side. Similarly, there'll be certain political outlets that news outlets that cater to a different demographic of political ideology. So it is really hard to, like, bring everyone on the same page, and, like, just say that, it sounds nice on paper to say that, like, people should assume the responsibility of how they perceive these things, but it's really not that easy, especially in a country like India, where majority of the people are just, like, they won't even know that skepticism is a thing, that it is even possible for them to question what the news says, right? So it's a really hard thing to expect to in India. But yeah, HP, go ahead.
Thank you. I will rather go on a very polite side of it and not contradict everybody. I have a different opinion. I respect everybody else's opinion. And maybe I might be wrong, but as of now, I stick to the belief system I have. And that is, there is, I would accept this point at least, that there is a certain bias in media. And I could actually, I saw day before yesterday, I'll give the same example of Republic TV, and Arnab was not debating, but he was and I would, one second, sorry. Arnab was debating something about this, and I would give you the context of it. He said the NEET candidates who were protesting were saying, don't go with what opposition is saying, don't go with what Rahul Gandhi is saying, don't go with what anybody else is saying. They're going to use you. And in a way, if I am a NEET aspirant, 16 years old, 17 years old, and I'm young and I don't know what politics is all about, so I would accept that media houses have a certain bias and they try to push you in their own direction. But then again, if you see people from persecuted sections of society, persecuted can be anybody. And as far as, for example, last time we were discussing, the persecuted minority came up to be Tamil Brahmins or Kashmiri Pandits. So in that context, a minority can be anything, okay? It does not need to be a Muslim or a Hindu or a Dalit or a Sikh, okay? There can be many different versions of minorities, but looking from their prism, they have come from a very long and harassed, for example, the black males we're talking at the start, they have a huge history of being persecuted, slavery, and what they have come out of. So if anything happens to them, they maybe there's a triggering action and they just become defensive, and then they all unite because they have seen collected oppression. And most of the times it is true, it might be highlighted a little more or a lot more, but then again you don't forget about what actually these people face. For example, if there's a minority living in a majority of say 10 people or 4 people living in 100 people village, and these 3 people or 4 people do something to the other section that's more than 90% or 80%, so they don't need any support system from a media house or a police station. I'm not talking about, I'm not generalizing, but I'm talking about rural India where things happen, where I saw this series on Amazon Prime, Patal Lok. A boy from a Sikh background, somewhere in Punjab. I'm not sure if he was Sikh, but in Punjab, and he got in a fist fight and hurted a person from majority community in their society or a upper caste, and they came and 10 people raped his mother so that to teach him a lesson, okay, so that he can understand. So they have a very good most of the places in past had a very good system of defending majority, because at the end majority means having more participation, having 90 people, 80 people in a society. If for example I and you are fighting, and we are in school or college or any other place, there are 20 people behind you and 3 people behind me, so you already are very powerful. But fortunately or unfortunately, we live in a democracy, and our constitution can be the main culprit here. If you're talking in that term, I can say the constitution is the culprit, which gives certain rights to minorities, where they actually are given more than majorities. Minorities are, for example, SC/ST Act. You say something to a SC/ST person, you can actually get jailed, non-bailable, and all those articles can come and haunt you. Okay, so the constitution has made a provision at the time of independence by Bhimrao Ambedkar that all these people who can be persecuted and can have threat of their lives and can have different these atrocities against them, these people should be guarded. And the same Gandhian philosophy then comes in and says you need to protect the last man standing in the row. I don't care about the first 100. I care about the last 101. This can be a very beautiful and an ugly thing as well. If you look from the positive side, you can see an elder brother, I'm saying, for example, the Hindu majority, a Hindu elder brother protecting a lower, because there's a major section of main upper caste or majority Hindus who still believe, who still vote against BJP or right-wing governments and then go for India alliances. And you can see that from past election. In fact, you can also, for example, someone came up with this madrasas getting funds from TMC. Then again, you can realize, even after the whole Ram Janambhoomi movement and whole momentum the NDA had, still they again, in fact, after TMC got lesser votes than BJP in previous 2019 elections, but these people chose Mamata Banerjee back. They chose her as the CM as well. They chose her over Modi also, or NDA also, in this previous election. So they know it better. And I think if media is biased, if we know actually 5,000 or 5,500 crore, I know madrasas, I stand with the person who said they get money. I understand, and it's true. I can second that. But we didn't research about it. We didn't go and look on some website. We also got it through media only. So there is a certain section of media that reports everything. The only difference is, as you said correctly, people have different mediums of what you say understanding. Some people used to go to NDTV before Adani acquired it. Some go to Z News, some go to ABP, some go to other portals like Print and Quint and Wire. So there is a divided section of right and left media also. So you already know before channeling what the person who is going to feed you news, what context and what kind of fabrication is going to be around it, whether it's going to be left or right. Before switching it on, you can understand the same news can be reported in two different languages. Exact same event can be equally having the same facts, which cannot be fabricated, can still be presented in a right way and a left way, and you know where to watch what.
Exactly.
So if that is there, and if you already know that is happening, then you should also understand, for example, if you're saying India should be governed by one law, but then again, if you want one law, are you willing to negotiate in terms of these laws? For example, if a Muslim person comes and says, according to Islam, we have this way of distribution of wealth, and the Sikh says we have this way of distribution of wealth, does it mean that you want to make one law taking in consideration of those people also, that their law is this, so I can come a little bit, I can negotiate and come 2 steps towards them, and they will come 2 steps towards me, and then there will be a law that will be applicable to all? Or are you saying that as a majority, what we have and what our law is going to be the one law everybody has to follow, because we are in majority? But then again, because of current times of technology, current times of democracy, current times of constitution, equality, internet, it will be very difficult to push your opinion towards somebody who doesn't want it, unless and until it's very good. For example, if
HP,
yeah.
Just 1 second. I need to go. I have a hard stop at 8. So
Yep.
before I go, I just want to point out a few things. Like for example, you pulled out this example of this Patal Lok, this thing that happens, right? I would say that mainstream. When I say mainstream media, it's not just about the news channels; it's also the popular entertainment as well. And if you're like I personally feel that there has been a shift in the trend of like how these kind of like topics also come about, because like it's become really popular that there's a shift in an ideological perspective of the popular media as well. There are there are like certain kinds of narratives which are more profitable because like there's a popular demand for this narrative, and I do think that there is a certain bias in the way uh, you know media creators also like focus on certain topics that are that portray a certain reality. So I don't think that it's valid to like take an example out of that and then like say that this is how it happens and this is how we should understand the reality of situation, because the reality of situation could also be just twisted in the narrative that is presented in the media, because there is a certain political bias in the way these things also get portrayed in popular media. I really want to like discuss more, but obviously like I have to go to this other call. I'm gonna make Karthik the host. He agreed to be the host. So I'm really sorry guys, I have to drop now. I would love to continue the conversation, but I would maybe I'll check the recording. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining. I'm dropping now.
Bye, Raghu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So continuing, HP, you wanna talk?
Yeah, you can counter say something, and then I can please go.
Yeah. So the thing which you have said about this TMC government, which the news which we have got from the media, you are correct. You are absolutely right that we have got this news from media, and after getting this news from the media, I actually have researched about it. And when I researched about it from the West Bengal's finance department, it is actually true. And I will continue saying, I will just say 2-3 points that how much they have actually has allocated their funds, and they have allocated to many departments, but I would like to highlight only 3-4 because of the time constraint. So they have actually to the law department, they have allocated 20.54 crore rupees. For mass education and extension library services, they have allocated 404 crores. For MSMEs, they have allocated 1,200 crores. For minority affairs and madrasa education, this has been particularly they have mentioned as madrasa education. They could have stopped at minority affairs, but they have actually continued about writing this madrasa education, for which they have allocated 5.5 thousand crores, which I find this is not at all reasonable, where your your state actually needs a IT hub for the people to grow there. Your economy is very much low there, but you want to fund madrasa there. I don't know what is the reason and what is the actual motivation there to make the use of funds to madrasas. And that's how you fund the media to do not highlight all these kind of things. And you fund the media house to make the minorities or Muslims to play a victim card rather than all these benefits which they are actually getting.
Okay, should I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
See, I'm not countering any fact you said. Might be exact. I don't know the facts. You might be exactly right, and I would take your word for it that whatever you are saying is correct. But what I am trying to say is, Mamata Banerjee and TMC is an elected government in West Bengal and has been there since 2011. It's been more than a decade, and whatever she is doing, okay, she is doing to let's say appease the voter base she has. She's doing to do whatever she's doing to stay in power. But then again, it does mean that a subsequent section of a society there, I'm not saying Hindu or Muslim or anybody, I'm saying whatever maybe her main this voter base is Muslim, because at the end Bengal has second highest Muslim population in India after J&K. So maybe her main majority base is Muslim and they're getting her in power. So if that is happening, that is politics taking place and that is appeasement politics. Okay, I accept that. But what my point is, if media portrays something in some light, then again, it's always not one side. Okay. So for example, to be, let's say, in an unbiased environment, many people would have followed COVID news at start, and you would have seen many times, like in the start of this, what I say, the COVID phase, first wave, there was this Bora community who were doing some religious rituals, and they were they don't waste food and they lick the plates and they lick the whatever is left out of it. Anybody can have eaten and consumed in those plates, but what they do is they don't wash them directly, they wash them by cleaning the food from the plate. They don't waste it. And then it caught the eye of media, and at that time, if you realize, there was a very good section of media that was saying that the minority or the directly Muslims are trying to spread COVID more in all directions. And in fact, if you would have realized, there was a news on Z Media where they're not letting Muslims even donate plasma because they're saying their plasma already has COVID. You can see many stories in those directions coming out. You can see a normal funeral of late Shrimati Lata Mangeshkar ji, and you can see at a funeral Shah Rukh Khan came, and I don't know what he did. He just the next news was that Shah Rukh Khan spat on the samadhi of Lata Mangeshkar ji, and then we realized that he was praying and that was some Muslim way of doing something. So there is a bias in both directions. You cannot say that only one of the two are persecuted and only one way the media goes. Media goes haywire wherever it gets the attention. But those, you can see many sections and many, if you check the statistics of the debate of all major news channels, you can see the amount of debates done on Love Jihad, amount of debates done on Pakistan, amount of debates done on NRCCA, amount of debates done on all these places where, for example, that Aftab, some Poonawala or some guy did that heinous crime of killing that innocent woman and then cutting her and all. But then again, that kind of news also flashes. There's a very good amount of material out against minorities also in the media. I'm not saying it gets the other side does not get highlighted. It might in one way or other way there is, but then again this side also, which is already smaller in proportion in population, if that side gets lynched, okay, and somebody dies, we cannot say that it should not be reported. If that happens, and that means tomorrow we'll become a society where we can see people getting chopped off, and we'll say, hey, just see if that is a Hindu or a Muslim getting chopped off, and then take the reel or then issue a news. It should be something that comes out. Then again, what gets traction is a point of debate. Maybe something that is very spicy and something that can get more viewership. I think some previous speaker said Facebook and Instagram attracts more violent news, and maybe that is a different game, but everything should get covered. If there is a crime, irrespective of a person, whoever that person is, be it Muslim or Hindu, it should be reported. Then again, you have to debate about the other point, that go by the statistics, that is it true, what is the ratio of crimes committed against minorities and against majorities. So if there is a statistics which says 10,000 for 10,000 cases against minorities, Dalits, women are also minority in one way treated in those contexts. If you just go by domestic violence and Women's Board, Delhi Commission and others reports, you can realize these people have a higher number of statistics, and maybe that can also be a reason if the number is 10,000 to 200 or 222, 223. So maybe because they are being done at such a scale, that's why maybe they're reported more. Thank you.
Great point, HP. Anyone wants to counter that or have some other points?
Prince is here, but I think it's very biased and very sensitive topic. So I think many people will in one way or other way refrain from saying, but then again, I think you have, it has been more than 1 hour, 10 minutes, the debate has gone on. If you want to contribute, or if nobody's saying, I can contribute few more, what you said, points. If Prince wants
I just want to say a few things, HP, on this, because you have
Please.
said actually very good points, and I just want to say a few things. So these things which you have said about Shah Rukh Khan or other things, the things which are being highlighted, the crimes which are done by the minorities, this is actually post 2014, or after the BJP came into power. The biggest example, I would say, there are like two examples where we can see that the victim card was played by the Muslim especially, and those two big major events was the Kashmir exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits and the Babri Masjid thing. So while the Kashmiri Pandits exodus was happening, most of the major media houses reported that Kashmiri Pandits, the revolt against Kashmiri Pandits by the Muslims was because the government jobs majorly held by the Kashmiri Pandits, and that's how they portrayed it as a judgmental thing. And coming to the Babri Masjid thing, everyone showed us how Gujarat, Babri Masjid actually has, has been a significant significant, I would say, I'm not getting that word. Babri Masjid is the sole reason for the Gujarat riots. But before the Babri Masjid, there was a Godhra Kand. And now it is being highlighted by the media. So if you say that, media houses are being, equally showing things, but I'm really sorry. Now they are being showing us not before 2014. I completely agree that before 2014, even I didn't knew that there was a Godhra massacre which happened, where 51, 52 people or 60 people were burnt alive in a train. That was not at all shown. They were only showing as Modi as a biggest villain of the, of our country. and Hindu Brahmins as a, negative things. So these are being shown now. What before the 2014 was a great different picture. That's all I want to say.
I
And
would
you are absolutely right that media houses should, and they should not be biased. They should show uh, you know equal crimes, whatever there have been happening. But unfortunately, media houses, they also need money, and they are being funded, and they will bend towards those people who fund them more. And if we talk about Republic, Bharat, and Times now, we all know that somewhere, they are being funded by the right wing government. And NDTV, channels like NDTV or other media houses, they are being funded by the left. And if we talk about the global perspective, BBC, Al Jazeera, they always show Muslims as being the victims. Even while the coronavirus, BBC showed Pakistan is doing great in fighting the corona, while they were telling that India is, suffering from the COVID. The truth, how these media houses actually work. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I accept what you said about Al Jazeera. Mm, BBC used to be very credible. Right now, you can see there are many foreign agencies working with and against our country.
So sorry to interrupt, HP. Just one more point. I just forgot. It just went over. BBC even went on to, interview Kasab when he was in the custody during the Congress government. That how did he become the terrorist? What were the reasons? It was just that because of the opposition, they couldn't interview Kasab. I think they did interview, but it was not telecasted at that time. They were showing how Kasab became a terrorist. They were trying to portray that he is a very, normal person, and he should be given, he should not be punished at all. That's how they function. I don't know from which party they are being funded, but one of the solution which I am, getting is that there should be strict anti-money laundering rules in our country to actually stop them from portraying all these kind of things, because media houses are being funded extremely by this left wing, or we can say anti-India forces. There should be a strict money laundering regulations in our countries, and there should be the audits when are done to these media houses, they should be taken very seriously. And I think that's what we are lacking as of now. Sorry, yeah, please continue.
There's a message by Prince about BBC interview for Bindrawala. But anyways, I would say first and foremost, our media ratings and press freedom index has gone down considerably by a lot of margin, and we have reached some 50, 160 number overall as far as the list of all the countries in press freedom index goes. And as far as international media is concerned, for example, Al Jazeera is concerned, it's a Qatar-based, Qatar-funded, a Muslim country-funded media outlet, and it is always going to have a certain biased and certain leaning towards Muslims. We can understand that very clearly because Qatar is a Muslim country, and same goes for BBC. BBC is a British broadcasting company, or whatever the full form is. It is Britain's leading news agency, and it has to take cognizance of the Britain government, and whatever amount of money you're going to fund Al Jazeera or fund BBC, it's going to be very minimal in amount of the money they get from the sources they already have. Qatar is a very big oil economy, and England and Britain, we know how much they looted from us. But from home-based agencies and news channels we have, if we talk about ABP, if we talk about News 18, if we talk about Zee News, if we talk about Republic Bharat, if we talk about NDTV, all these agencies are either owned by Viacom 18, which is Mukesh Ambani's company. NDTV is openly owned by Adani, and this Zee News already opened by former BJP MP, and 90% of the telecast media, which we know, major news channels on TV, are owned by houses that are very close proximities to BJP. You can check that out. And as far as the reporting of the crimes, and as far as the Anti-Money Laundering Act, and as far as all these anti-India activities you're saying are happening, I think we have had a very strong right-wing, full majority government from past 10 years, not like 15 days or a month or a year, 10 years. And this government was so powerful that it threw Rahul Gandhi out of his own house and expelled him, and expelled 150 members of parliament. And please take into consideration, one member of parliament represents a constituency of voters from 20 to, including the families, younger ones and elder ones, you can say approximately 30 lakh people, 30 to 50 lakh people. So if you are throwing 30% majority in 30% of representatives of this country, expelling them out of the parliament, that means you have a lot of muscle. So in fact, despite having all that muscle, you need to know if there is some kind of corruption, if there is some kind of money laundering, if there is some kind of negotiations happening, and that could have been corrupt very easily. But that is a very separate topic, and I don't think that gives much relevance to this. The only relevance it gives is whether they report right-leaning crimes or left-leaning crimes, or crimes against minorities or crimes against majorities. So I will counter that with the first point I said. 90% of the places in this country where a minority lives, and please also understand that a minority does not mean just some few people like Jews were in Germany, or like other people like Palestinians in all that area of Gaza Strip against Israel. The minorities we have, for example, Sikhs, 5 to 7 crore people. Minorities we have, Muslims, estimated 22 crore to 25 crore people. Minorities we have, Buddhists and Christians and all these people, if we compile them without the caste minorities, religious minorities constitute about 30 crore people. If we go with caste minorities, then again they become, I think one speaker correctly said that minority starts becoming the majority. If you just realize what is the number of minorities we have. So if we have 40 crore Dalits and 30 crore religious minorities, that makes them 70 to 75 crore people. If we have more than 50 crore people that fall in this bracket, and then we say there is a discrimination against them, and then we say there can be publishing and over promoting of these people. I understand that one way or other way, but if you look at the facts and if you look at the general situation, these people are persecuted from very far. There was a time when they only used to do manual scavenging. They used to clean the bathrooms and clean the roads of upper castes, and all that has a very strong history, and these people remember that. And if a single incident happens, they get united and they protest and they raise their voices against them. That's why they are heard more. But then again, I also understand there are many unreported crimes against majority and upper castes also. That should also come into contest. But democracy being democracy, it has to keep place for everybody. Everybody needs that shared space. Unless and until we consider everyone, unless and until we give space to everyone, we will crumble as a country. We need a united India to fight and to progress. We don't need a distributed India which is fighting among its own citizens, among its own majority versus minority, caste versus caste, religion versus religion. We need a united front, and I think that is more important if we stay collective and we have that harmony and love which we have been having despite having Babri demolition, Godhra riots. These happened once in a decade. Babri happened in 91, Godhra happened in 2002, And I touch wood, as from past 22, 23 years, we haven't had such a major riot where 1,000 or 2,000 people were killed. So we're lucky that way that we are progressing and riots are getting smaller. And I hope we continue the same path of harmony. Thank you.
Thank you, HP. So I just want to counter on one of the points where you said our press freedom index, or what was that index? Can you repeat once?
Press freedom index of India, yet it slipped down since 2014.
Okay. I think it was actually below Afghanistan, and we know the situation of Afghanistan right now. It was actually, and that press freedom index, whichever the organization has funded, again, it is being funded again, to showcase some of the country which is far away from India's growth economy and all other things. They have outperformed India, and we can see later what happened to actually Afghanistan. So coming to
Your point on the Afghanistan, because or else the law will come and I won't be able to, will forget this point. Afghanistan that time was governed and maintained by United States of America, and the reporters there were American reporters. It was not handed over to Taliban that time. So the condition of Afghanistan at that time comparison to now is almost opposite. It's under Islamic law enforced by Taliban, and that time it was about under a democratic rule under United States of America, and the press freedom index might have been high, and the only reason for it being high was because there were American journalists reporting from there, not Afghani journalists. Most of the journalists were non-Afghanis; they were from Europe and United Western countries.
And what about then Pakistan? Even Pakistan was,
we cannot compare ourselves with Pakistan. That is a very smaller nation.
No. It's not about smaller nations. See how I'm trying to tell you how these media houses try to portray India in terms of these countries, Pakistan or Afghanistan. You know the situation of both these countries, but they have been rated higher against India. When we talk about India, they tell that, and the points which they have taken, they are telling that because of all the things, the press, the freedom of press has been fallen.
I will tell you my problem. I never take any fact from Pakistan or Afghanistan.
You don't take. Okay, that's fine. You don't take. That is good. That is good. You don't take. But when you have,
our fight is with bigger. Pakistan is such a smaller nation that even if a chunk of like 10% or 15% of our soldiers go into some places, it won't be there only. So
no,
I will
it's
fight.
Okay. No.
Why would I fight with something which is very small?
So you're talking about the demographic?
That is demographic, finances, money, dictatorship that they have, army regime they have. There are no place to be compared with India. We can feed them like beggars for next 50 years.
No. When you say that, when you have pointed that, India's rank has been slipped below, then we have to consider these points also. That how these actually media houses do these things. The research organizations do these things.
What I think is, what my strong opinion here is, if I have a problem and I am slipping somewhere, and I've always seen, and I have had some idols, I have had people who I've seen flourishing. What they do is they don't point out usko dekho, isko dekho, his fault. See, he is lesser than me. I'm doing better than that. I look at those people. They check themselves out and get better. I am not going to look at some crazy nation which has biased elections, has no money to eat food also.
I think HP, that is the point here we are trying to make. That how these media houses or these research organizations are being funded to portray one majority or the minority in terms of the other. Now, if you talk about Pakistan or Afghanistan, they are a Muslim populated country, and they are being shown as the most freedom country. And I am not comparing Pakistan or Afghanistan with India, but because you have pointed out about this press freedom index,
yes,
this is also a fact that they are showing our country below those countries. And how can we? My question is, how can we believe that whatever they're portraying is true. I don't want to compare of my country with Pakistan or Afghanistan or some other country. It is
So
just that
I'll
how can I,
see if some if
believe
I
that?
okay. First, if I am giving lesser score on an exam card, I'm not going to go and check. Like many people criticize India Alliance and Congress that whenever they fail, they start saying EVM kharab hai. So I'm not going to go in that rhetoric. People say, "Ke if you're not scored high, just check other person's score." What I'm going to do is first I'll analyze myself. If I'm correct, and if I see there is no fault, whatsoever way, then I'm saying, "Ki, haan, I'll check Pakistan's record and Afghanistan's record also." But when I'm going to check my own record, and I understand United Nations and all these international organizations carry out these reports and check these statistics, Pew Research does it, and I see them reporting right about us up to a certain time, and then after a certain government change or certain situation that happens in our country, they've started reporting us down on press freedom index, reporting us down on happiness index, hunger index. They have given us employment index. They say 45-year lowest employment has happened. So all these parameters, if they are going down, before blaming them, because they actually can actually harm my country, they can actually what you say, damage the image of my country. So before going there, I'll first see what has happened. So if I realize that there has been a media house that was owned by some person, and that person is thrown out of the media house, and the same media house is bought by somebody who's very close to the ruling government, then I'll say, "Okay, one incident has happened." But then I realize there's a line of journalists, Punya Prasoon Vajpayee, this Ravish Kumar, all these people, they can be very left, okay, and they can be very wrong, but they have been thrown out of their offices. And then I start hearing these new terms like Godi media, new terms like roasting these people and openly seeing their bias. Then I'll again try to see, is it right or wrong? Maybe some section of society has this huge agenda and propaganda which is leftist, and then because of all these leftist propagandas, they're damaging the image of our country. But looking at all that, if I see a line in which I see people saying 400 plus for NDA, I see 90% of the household, these media channels say more than 350 at any cost to NDA, BJP more than 330 and better than previous. And then there's a very twist on the ground. I conducted a debate. I was hosting this on the same debate club, and it was about predicting India's path. All the panel said BJP is coming back with more than 350, 330. It's a recording. You can check on the channel's YouTube link also. So we are very much disconnected from the ground. When we go to the ground and realize the grassroots level politics, we understand there are many people who are very far from what is reported. Like you are saying, what is reported about minorities and it is not in the line. Same way, there have been changes on media houses and the sections of media houses that are portraying something that is very much relevant and very much favoring the ruling dispensation. So if those things you collect and see how Anna Hazare movement happened in 2011 and how every media household said Congress government is corrupt, 2G scam, 3G scam had figures like 1, and then there 0.000000000 scam done by UPA government used to be on the front pages. And you have no reporting at all like that for NEET scam. You have no reporting for that. I mean, Ram Mandir started leaking today at the main darshan line, and there is no support and no main reaction from media. And if it would have happened in that time, you can still Google and you can still check YouTube videos of how they used to grill Manmohan Singh and how they used to grill these people in power, and you don't see any press conference happening from the main ruling party also. So keeping in all that in view, you should first analyze what is going on with us, then say somebody is doing a propaganda against us, is what I would say.
Prasang, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. If we compare the current media with what it was like 10 years back, then definitely there has been decline. How much it has declined, that can be discussed. But yeah, there has been decline, and especially seeing the Arnav on the media, especially on the news channel Republic is also one example. Like we can see, it is a decline. And I think we can't compare with the Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is not having a media itself. It's like a totally Islamic country. And coming to the Pakistan, I think Pakistan does have as of now, the better media as compared to the India, because I've seen them uh, kind of doing the media coverage in favor of Imran Khan, even though he's not in the power, he is in jail. So if they believe like Imran Khan is not Trump, they are doing the media coverage in his favor. So which shows like there is a kind of little bit neutrality in there. But here in India, you see openly kind of media. Whole days they only show one person wherever he goes. Like they go after him and show him on the TV throughout the day. And then whenever they get the chance to interview, which is very rarely, the you have seen like there has been report that all those interviews are kind of scripted, and they never raise any question against the prime minister why he's not doing the press conference, which is a very important part of the democracy, I believe. Like you see every other country, even before Modi, Manmohan used to do a lot of press conference, and there actually people can ask the question to our prime minister, right? But that never happened in India. So which shows that the media has gone little polite on the government, and at the same time you see calling Pappu people, even in the media people call Pappu to Rahul Gandhi. I don't know why. I mean, like they try to question a person, not the idea. They can question the ideology, but they try to question the personal personality, that kind of things. So definitely, if you summarize all these things, there has been decline in the media. There is no doubt in that. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Prasanna. And I think both of you have raised actually great points. And when HP said actually about Rabish Kumar being thrown out of their news channels, there was a time even Arnab Goswami also being thrown out of Times Now, and he opened his own Republic TV channel. So these things happen internally when we cannot directly blame the government, because it is against the government they are being thrown out. NDTV still, they portray the government in a negative way, even after Rabish Kumar. And we don't know the intricacies, what happened between Rabish Kumar and the news channel itself. So we cannot say that. And of course, definitely we cannot compare our country with Pakistan and Afghanistan. It is just that some index has, when it is shown, and when I see my country below Pakistan and Afghanistan, so my question is that how can I believe such index? That was my actually point. And of course there has been a bent towards some of the media houses uh, of the right wing, and we all know that these things are not fair enough nowadays. But these are all after 2014, and this was actually not pre 2014, and we have come a very far way. And now we have to actually, we people have to demand the government, we people have to demand the media that it needs to show a proper balancing news channels. It should not be bent towards any of the right wing or left wing. That's all I want to say.
I'd like to counter one thing that you mentioned about NDTV. So the difference between what happened from Times Now when Arnav was in Times Now and he switched it to Republic Bharat, and what happened in NDTV are very opposite examples. And I will also like to say how NDTV used to report before Adani Enterprises acquired it, and how it reports now is very different. You can see the differences. Take any video now and take any video before 2018, 19 or 14, and you can see how they used to report about BJP. They demonize the upper government and they used to question everything. Right now, majority of the people in NDTV also give the polls that BJP is going to win with very good numbers. keeping all that aside, what happened with Arnab Goswami was, when Times Now, he was not speaking against the government. He was speaking for the government. And like Prasang said, I don't know where it came, the Pappu word. That was something that Arnab used to say a lot on Times Now. He was very pro-right at that time. Right to a level where channel used to have this competition that I am more of a Modi's guy, I'm more of a right supporting journalist than the channel. And he started thinking that he has become, because the phrase that time was, India wants to know. And Arnab Goswami was a brand which he had created, that he doesn't let anybody speak in the debate. If you remember those times, there were memes on him, especially AIB and all those TVF used to do a lot of comedy that time, the old these YouTube channels. So what happened was, he got good support from the right government, and you can see the main investors of Republic Bharat and Republic TV that time were from BJP government, working in capacity of member of parliaments from the same party, and he opened a news channel, bigger news channel, because he was more ambitious. And what happened with NDTV is very opposite to that. NDTV was sold to Adani Enterprises from Subroto Roy and Radhika Roy, and they didn't want to sell. The only thing what they had done is, they had taken a loan from a company XYZ, and that XYZ company was bought by Adani Enterprises. That's how Adani hostile way overtook NDTV, and then started firing some journalists that were not along the lines of Adani, and other main faces like Ravish Kumar, Subroto, Pranay Roy and Radhika Roy, the main faces of the channel, went out of the news agency, and there was a very hostile takeover. The difference is, the right wing took over NDTV, and at Times Now there was financial debate between Arnab Goswami for 9 o'clock debate, who gets the more money and more viewership, and Arnab wanted more finances and money. It is reported, you can check the facts, and with all that money, he started his own news channel. Ravish Kumar could not start his own news channel. He just came to a free platform of YouTube, where he started getting the traction now. Thank you.
See, if we say that Adani has bought NDTV, and Adani is a right-wing, person, every government in power has taken the help of Adani and Ambani in their, time periods. And we cannot say that we are actually portraying Adani and Ambani as being right-wing. And when we see the Congress, state governed by the Congress, even they have the projects, being dealt with Adani. At that time, my question is that not a fall of the freedom there, or the secularism, whatever they call it? So it is that we are portraying Adani as a right wing, but it is not like that. He is a pure businessman, and he's that kind of he's a capitalist guy. We all know that. And these people do not support any government. They are in favor of the government which is in power. It is like that. When Congress was in power, they are in favor of the Congress. They don't speak anything in the media against any government.
Well, I would say something about Ambani and Adani, as in relevance to previous UP or Congress government, and what has happened in current government. Definitely, you are right. Adani and Ambani were there in Congress government also. They were doing good business that time also, and they're doing far more better business now. But the difference is, when they used to do business in Congress times, there was no monopoly happening. There was no control over the government of these people. Maybe there was corruption, and maybe these people were paying the Congress or UP or any government that time for getting tenders passed. But so did other companies. So did Tata was also in the competition. They also got many. There was Tata Docomo, there was Vodafone, there were Aircel and many other companies that were there. But the amount of hostility, brute force these people come with in current regime, where there will be no other network other than 2 or 3 networks as far as Reliance Group is concerned. And there will be no other person handling the airports as far as Adani Group is concerned. So all the airports are given to Adanis, all the telecom rights are given to Ambanis. And the current monopoly is such that they started with free SIMs and they started with free internet and everything. And now they're charging 3,000 rupees a year, and they're going to charge you some extra money if you are going to take a free SIM, a second SIM in your second SIM slot. They're going to charge that also. And now there is no Aircel, no Tata Docomo, no other network which can be in competition and crush these people and get you a better price. Overall, as a country of 150 crore people, we don't have telecom options, because the current government is in bed with these people so strongly that they cannot go against them. So, for example, I'll give you an example of Rahul Gandhi again, who took a picture of Adani in the parliament and then raised a question about him. He was expelled in 24 hours without any reason. That's the strength this person has. And imagine the participation or the control of the same company over the current government, where the campaign of Mr. Modi that all happened was in his plane only. The plane that Adani had, Mr. Modi used to travel in through all those campaigns in his plane only. What good and smart thing BJP and NDA did is they did not take small 10 businessmen and 20 businessmen and kept everybody happy. So what used to happen in Congress time, anybody went and say, okay, I'm going to give you fund to the party and I want such and such favor. That used to happen. But what changed was NDA or BJP did not take financiers. They just take 2 people. They did not take everyone. And now we have a force, a financial institution that has more money than the government of India. And this power and the strength these people have, if you are somebody who is 750th richest person in the world, and then you become richest person in the whole world, you cross more than 750 ranks on world platform in just an amount of 2 years or 3 years, which usually takes 150 years for normal people. Doing small, I'm not talking about internet business like Facebook and SpaceX and Tesla. I'm talking about proper mining, proper port business that Adani had, proper real estate business that Adani was in.
Sorry,
How
but it will go to a different level if we talk how BJP is being supported by Adani or Adani is being supported by BJP. What I'm telling you is, if there is any government in the power, Adani or Ambani will be in favor of that government. And if we portray that, if Adani buys a media house, it is for the BJP itself. Because in other parties where Congress rules, there are projects with Adani. And these are all assumptions we are talking. That, if Adani buys, it is right-wing government only. Because of the right wing, the media house has been bought by Adani. No, it should not be assumed like that. How can you come to a conclusion like that? You may
Yes,
have a number of, other things which you are saying that, about BJP's relation or Modi's relation with Adani. But how can you prove, suppose if you go to a court of law, how will you prove that, it is being bought actually? Because of these, no, you cannot actually prove these things. Or you cannot link these things with this media's freedom. You cannot link these things with the media's freedom. That's what I'm saying. Prasang, you want to say something? You have been raising hand for a long time.
Yeah, I also like to add something here. Like at the first place, a businessman buying the media should be not allowed. I think because it is a kind of conflict of interest. Because if anybody is there in the media, and if you have anything, you would like to use that for your benefits somehow, right? So similarly, if a businessman is buying, then the businessman would like to kind of influence that, use that to appease the government. And I quite agree with Karthik's statement that the businessmen are not the right or left; they are with the government. Like when there was a Congress government, we used to hear a lot like there's a tie-up between the Ambani and Congress, right? And then now there's a tie-up between the Modi and Adani and Ambani. So I think the moment government changes, the shift of the any businessman changes, because their business is closely associated with the the government entity like airport and the ports and other like kind of core business, steel and other things. So that's why their intention will shift, but we as a citizen should say that let's keep the media independent and not allow the businessman to take over any media channels. I think that will at least make so little bit that media channels are kind of owned by the small people and they are kind of independent. And that's all.
I'd like to counter the first point where you said there is nothing to prove. What I'm saying is I'm not against any business house or any media, but what has happened and what has happened repeatedly as far as Adani Ambani cases are concerned, you will see government can have favoritism towards a certain company, and you cannot say because they have to run a political party, they have to do all these campaigns and everything else, whatever that is. But if you are keeping in consideration the participation of healthy environment for businesses, you need to give an ample space, being a democracy, to everybody. You cannot go to a specific company. What has happened in case of Adani Ambani, that government has got in bed with these people in such a way that they cannot come out of it. So if you are normally doing a transaction, okay, and in that transaction you're not happy with the company, you throw that company off and give the contract to somebody else. But say, for example, the main top brass has some way got stuck with a certain company, that the company is creating a policy in all the sectors which is favoring it, and especially in a crony capitalism or capitalist society which dominates a democracy, it's very fatal for us. And to just give you an example, for example, there is a special economic zone in Mundra and Mundra Port, around Mundra Port in Kutch of Gujarat. And I am giving you the name of the places. So there were Tata Power was there, Tata Motors was there, other than Tata Maruti Suzuki was there, K. Raheja Corp was there. The land that was sold there, for example, to Torrent Power was 6,000 rupees per meter. Okay. Under Mr. Modi's rule in Gujarat, 6,000 rupees per meter. And the cheapest land that was bought by Tata that time for, Ford India that time for 1,100 rupees per square feet. And other companies also, for example, Tata Nano plant was set up in Gujarat. That was there for some 1,200 rupees per square meter. And then there were other agencies that were getting 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 rupees per square meter. But at the same time, same place, the land that was bought by Adani Enterprises was 1 rupee per square meter. And the highest money that Adani Enterprise has paid is 32 rupees. So if there's a healthy competition, you have Ford entering, Torrent entering, you have Tata Power entering a place in Mundra and in Kutch, and they're settling down their agencies. Tata is putting Nano plant when Nano was shifted from West Bengal to Gujarat, and they were very happy to pay that 1,100 rupees, 1,200 rupees, 2,000 rupees because they thought it is very cheap. And that is one level. But imagine a very lower company called Adani. That time it was nothing in front of Ambani's, Tata Power and Ford and other people. It was just starting. Getting 30 rupees, 11 rupees, 12 rupees per square meter price. I mean, getting 1 rupee per square meter that it got around 1,200 acres at, 700 acres. Imagine the amount of power and the grab these people have on the government that they cannot do anything. They openly have to do corruption. They openly, Prime Minister Modi openly came on the advertisement page of Jio Telecom when it was launched. How can a Prime Minister endorse a private company, especially when there's a healthy competition, when there has been Airtel, there has been Vodafone, there have been other companies? How can you sponsor being a Prime Minister a specific company? So looking at all that, you can see there's a nerve bending of government. And that is very fatal for a democracy. Especially when something becomes very powerful, it starts sucking out money from everybody. So that is my counter to what you said, Kay. There's no proof. I gave you the time when Mr. Honorable Prime Minister was the Chief Minister of Gujarat State, and the acquiring was happening.
No,
by
HP. Actually, my point is that these things are still going in the courts, and what my point is about the proof is that these things have happened, right?
I'm
But
not saying
if
what will
we,
happen in it is not court. I'm setting the public record. This
yeah,
is
okay,
public.
if it is in,
Not
if
court
it is
case.
a public, okay,
Huh.
if it is my point is that what is if these things have happened or they may have happened in actual, but how will this affect the media? I'm telling you, if still these much of corruption has been happened by Adani and BJP, Ambani or BJP, but still Congress is with these two guys only, right? And if we say that Adani has bought NDTV indirectly or some other media channel indirectly, how can we say that it is actually supporting the right wing when there is also projects going on with the governments ruled by the Congress also? They maybe have number of corruptions, number of they may have like close relationship with each other also, but how can you say when there are also projects run by the Congress government only with these businessmen? How can you justify these things with this thing?
Okay,
That's my point.
yes. Simple answer is right now non BJP government is in Telangana. It's in Bangalore. That means sorry, Karnataka. It's in Himachal Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Sorry, this West Bengal. So Adani has projects in when Congress government was in Rajasthan, it got a project in Rajasthan as well as it got a project in West Bengal. But what happened was there were people who applied in these states and got contracts. And you can see Tata Power got contracts. There are many regional companies that got contract, and they had no bias against Adani. They, for example, if Congress government is against Gautam Adani or his company, for example, what they do is they can counter him in parliament. They can say everything where they're saying, "Nahi, this man is with this party, he is leaning to NDA and BJP." But at the same time, in a democratic setup, they're not debarring him or banning him to enter their state. So if he is going for a contract and a tender and placing the lowest bid, they are bound to give him that place. We are not living in a dictatorship where you can say whatever is favoring BJP. That can happen in a BJP run state. You can see there are many right-leaning parties or powers that are associated to such say Congress governments or previous governments. They are right away blocked. For example, the diesel and the petrochemicals that are imported, the monopoly is only Reliance Industries can import it. No other party or is licensed to import certain petrochemicals, which then get converted into diesel and other low price these chemicals which are used in boilers and manufacturing units. You can use your internet and check that out as well. And I'm saying all this in the record, so you can cross check, and I stand by what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is they're not debarring them from entering their states, whatever they are ruling. What is happening on contrary is these people and other agencies, not Congress also, normal other companies have to wind up their houses wherever they see an Adani contract or an Ambani contract in the list. They automatically understand that they are not going to win that tender or contract. The competition gets very scrutinized. And the same way, I am not saying that maybe Adani has acquired. I am telling you, Adani forcefully, openly in a media debate, as well as the public record, as far as the Ministry of Corporate Affairs are concerned, for share transfer of NDTV, which is New Delhi TV, as far as the full form is concerned, was the shares were transferred to a third party, which was forced to be sold to Adani Enterprises, and that's how it got NDTV. And NDTV at the time was the most and the biggest critic, because everybody who knows, as far as you also said, that NDTV shows everything against Mr. Modi or against right governments, and everybody has a bias against NDTV, so they say NDTV still is pro left. But unfortunately, because there's a prejudice in everybody's head, that NDTV only telecasts whatever is in right left space, Because of that, now new viewers are not going to it. If you start visiting the channel today and check the debates today, I'm talking current date or previous 2 days or 3 days, they're reporting on the same line as Z Bharat, Z News, Republic Bharat, and everybody else is reporting. They're not reporting anything extra or anything, what you say, opposite the government as they used to do back in the day.
Right, HP. I'll definitely, cross-check these, records which you are mentioning about. Prasang, do you have anything to say?
No, no.
Okay, so I think, so finally the conclusion which I can make up is that, whether left wing, right wing, India or Pakistan, whatever it is, media has always, a bent towards those entities which fund them. So to stop them, what I think is that people, as people of this country, we should be more focused on the facts, more focused on the development, economical development, and there are also many things come with these things, but we should actually indirectly or directly we can say to media or tell the media that boss, we are not in a interested in these things, Hindu Muslim or Hindu Christian or whatever it is. We want to know the facts, and that's what we want to see. But even if we get any news, when we get a news that in news between Hindu and Muslim guy, unfortunately the TRP is high at that time, and they are also like sometimes bound to show those pieces of news only. So until we develop our mindsets to see the things unrelated to or unbiased regarding the religion, I think the media house will be actually be considered as the fourth pillar. Right now, the fourth pillar of democracy is actually getting shaken, which I feel. But when the media is unbiased, I think it would be really a strong pillar.
Okay. I think we have a debate on Saturday as well. We don't have a this on that. Maybe we all will check it out and see each other that day. All right.
Yeah, HP. It was a
Perfect.
great session. It was a great debate. Yeah, you have really, pulled out really great points. Prasang, it was a great. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. It was great listening both of you.
Same
Thank you.
here. Same here. Bye.